Namaste, all you mystical minds. Welcome to the solar eclipse, new moon, Scorpio in Jyeshtha Nakshatra with Mercury and Ketu reading. Let's dive in. Hi everyone, my name is Chelsea Sonka. I'm a Vedic astrologer and consciousness coach, and this is your solar eclipse reading for December, the final eclipse. We're coming out of the eclipse portal. I know for myself personally, the reason that my videos were a bit delayed for December was because I was processing my own stuff coming up to the surface. Generally in the eclipse period, that 2 weeks where the lunar eclipse happened and the solar eclipse, some hidden truths can rise to the surface so that you can become aware of them. And I was, for myself personally, on a personal level, I found that I kind of had a feeling, but I had to come to the place of acceptance, and then started going through a grieving process, which was quite uncomfortable because I haven't had that for quite a few many years, where you really feel it in your gut, and those days where you just feel really lost. And that's this energy that we're playing with at the moment, where we're going to see it on a global level, but we're also going to feel it on a personal level. And it's just, I could do these videos earlier, but I tend to find that I get messages that come out a couple of days before, and it just makes the reading so much stronger. So I appreciate your patience for my subscribers. And for those of you that are new, welcome to the channel, and you're welcome to subscribe if you want to see more of my content, and like this if you find it helpful. And you can share it as well if you want to share this information with others so that they can be more aware and use the wisdom of Vedic astrology, the true placements of the stars as we use the moving constellations of the nakshatras, which I'm going to go through with you right now. So just as we jump in, I'm just going to do a quick mantra to Mars to pay homage to our Lord of Scorpio, and also a chant to Ketu to honor Ketu as the solar eclipse node that we are working with this month. Om Tarani Garbhasambutam Vidyukanti Samaprabham Kumaram Shaktihastam Ka Tam Mangalam Pranamamyaham Om Hurum Srim Mangalye Namaha. Supporting the womb of all existence, Mars shines forth with the radiance of beauty enhanced by love. The sun wielding energy in his hand, we bow down to Mars, bearer of welfare. Om, we bow down to Mars, bearer of welfare. And to Ketu, we say Om Kem Ketave Namaha. Om Kem Ketave Namaha. Om Kem Ketave Namaha. If you do some research online, you'll be able to come across some other eclipse practices that you can do, and different deities that you can, bhajans that you can sing, energy, exercising is going to be really good at this time because we're playing with Mars energies, but also meditation and a letting go. I find that, the Mars and the Ketu energy, I want to be doing a little bit of movement. Singing is very helpful too, especially if you've got a lot of emotion that you want to release, is going to be helpful at this time. So this particular new moon, solar eclipse in Scorpio, it's so powerful because we've got what is considered an exalted Ketu in Scorpio. It's where it feels most comfortable. It's a new moon, so it's the darkest placement. And I remember saying at the lunar eclipse video that as you go into the darkness, we go into a complete surrender. Like you can't see anything, but then all of a sudden the torch comes on and you can see the nitty gritty details of what's going on. You can actually find things like a microscope sort of thing that's going on that are going to come out as a result, as opposed to when the lights are all fully on and you're not really sure because you're just looking at a big room with lots of objects. Now you're going to get to see the little details that are going to start coming up. So we've also got Mercury here, and it's in Jyeshtha, which is ruled by Mercury. So Mercury near Ketu. Ketu is the south node of the moon, is the body, Rahu being the head. So we were playing with these themes of attachment, where we go this axis of Taurus, to Scorpio, where we are now, this new moon, usually a time of setting new intentions. However, it's a very transformational portal where we just completely, the energy is about surrendering. And when I say surrendering, it's about coming to a place of acceptance, whatever it is for you on a personal level or even out in the community globally that you're noticing is going on, accepting what you're going through, the energy that's coming up, the emotions flowing with them, as opposed to feeling the need to control and get angry, because there's definitely a lot of those themes that are going to come out this month in particular. You're going to find your own inner power when you have a divine focus this month. So as we move through this, now, last lunar eclipse, the moon was exalted. And this lunar eclipse, the moon is debilitated. And what's fascinating about this is that, so as we go into the depths, which is the Scorpion, so you think about being in the cave and wanting to explore mysticism and occult themes and secrecy and things like that, the moon's much more comfortable in Taurus, where it's about attachment and I'm thinking of delicious food and all these other things, family, comforts. Moon doesn't like going through the deep darkness, and we think about the emotions and what we're all going through. When you have, for example, I wrote down here a breakup, you feel really lost, you lose the sense of identity that you have around the relationship. Who are you? You start questioning these things. But you need to go through that process so that when we go Gandanta into Sagittarius, we start to come back to the light, so that we realize our divinity, unity, consciousness, that you are a divine being, a spiritual being having a human experience. And we have to go through that death, rebirth phase. And it's hella uncomfortable. I can testify to that. It's like a grief stage that I know for myself personally. Themes around relationships has really come up this month, particularly for me. And I mean, I'd love to hear your comments below if you're happy to share them. Otherwise, you can reach out to me as well if you're looking for support at this time. But yeah, this particular nakshatra is about power, independence. We can also see themes around danger that can kind of come up as well. It's the senior-most star. So Jyeshtha, if you think about each of the 27 nakshatras as sisters, the moon spends a night with each of them, and he spent a little bit too much time with Rohini, who is directly opposite Jyeshtha, and Jyeshtha is the older sister, and she complained and said, this isn't right, it's not fair, basically, to cut a long story short. And the moon was punished. However, she wanted him to be killed, and he was not. They decided, all the sisters said, no, we don't want that. So he loses his power every month. This is where the new moon happens, but then he regains his power where he comes back up to the full moon. And that's why we get the waxing and the waning moon cycle. Now, the deity for this particular nakshatra is Indra, who is the king of the gods, the powerful one, the dragon slayer. And there's a particular story where Indra, when he accepts that he needs to be swallowed by the dragon so that he can cut the belly of the dragon from inside, that takes a huge amount of surrender, because you don't know if you're going to be dissolved in the acid in the stomach, or what's going to happen after you get swallowed. Are you going to be able to get your way out? But it was this surrender so that you can ultimately succeed, demonstrating the truth. So courage and power, daringness, the ability to rise and conquer happen here. And it's very much, again, this Jupiter in Aquarius energy that I mentioned in the December 2021 energy reading. If you haven't seen that, click on my page and then go and check out the videos. You'll see it's the next one underneath this one. Go and watch that. It's a 30-minute video that will tell you about every single transit that's going to be happening this month. It's very, very detailed. We call this Arohana Shakti. It's the power to gain courage in battle. So you'll see the power of the people rising up with courage. Now make sure that this is coming from a heart-centered place and not from a fear-centered place, because we have the ability to succeed here, but not when we're coming from fear. The symbol here is an earring, an umbrella, or a circular talisman, which represents Vishnu's chakra. And immediately I started thinking of this story of the reason we have Rahu and Ketu, these eclipses, they were demons that drank the elixir of life, and they were sitting next to the sun and the moon. And they dobbed on them to Vishnu, and Vishnu used his chakra disc to chop off the head of what was, Rahu Ketu together as this like snake demon creature that had been disguised as a god, and was separated into the head and the body. And that's why these eclipses, they get their revenge on the sun and the moon, according to Indian mythology. So here I'm thinking about this energy of the ability to chop off heads, essentially. So chopping off of the ego. And I know for myself, it was like this realization of having too big of a cup and giving too much and being too forgiving, where a boundary really needs to be set. And I can do that from a loving place. It doesn't have to be cruel, but knowing that actually, no, I don't want to keep leaking energy in this particular area anymore. It doesn't feel good, and I haven't got anything left to give when I get to that point. So cutting off my own ego and understanding why that is no longer appropriate or okay. It never was, but for me personally, I mean, you might be going through something totally different. But for me to come to that realization, especially with someone and some people that are very, very, very close to me, that's a challenging conversation to have, you know what I mean? But as long as you're coming from the heart and you're speaking your truth, you can't go wrong. And we've got to go through that, as I said, that death rebirth, so that you can come back to your light, and you will have more power as a result of following your truth and taking it with courage. You'll come into alignment as a result, and you'll be rewarded. So I know from personal experience, I had a long-term relationship in my early 20s. And when I realized that it was no longer working, and I finally came to the conclusion that I've got to walk away, I was very, very scared. I had fear of being on my own, especially in a what was a 6-year relationship. But within the next month, you kind of go through this like gap period where you're not really sure what's going on, but then all of a sudden spirituality came into my life. All of these answers to the questions I had in my head were revealed, and I was rewarded for following that path, essentially, and sticking to my soul's journey. And we can camp off to the side on the mountain sometimes and forget where we want to be going, but we will be given opportunities to come and step back on. And you can do that any day. It's just listening to your higher self and not your lower self, where the ego sits, and we can sometimes get a little bit off path. So the shadow side of this particular nakshatra is a fall from grace. Arrogance, pride, egoism, irritability, a combative nature. We can find that we have fewer friends here, so a sense of loneliness. You may also desire to be secluded at this time, and I mean, I know that I feel very much the same there. And in general, with eclipses, you generally to go within yourself, especially with Scorpio, and have your own inner truths and leadership themes starting to come out, so that you can have truths revealed in the darkness is very important. A secretive nature, devotional, religious practices to be focused upon instead of materialism, where we've got that access again with Taurus, where we don't want to be filling up our life with things that we think are going to fulfill us or numb us or remove us from going through the spiritual work that we need to be doing so we can ascend to the next stage. The onion layer, so that we can do another peeling and arrive at the next realization, because the karmic payoff that's going to come from surrendering to that and moving on that journey is going to be huge, despite how challenging it is. But we all have our own unique, we are one, we're all going through it at separate sort of levels, but we are going through it as a one being. The motivation here is artha, material prosperity. So I see that as, again, that access with Taurus, but particularly with this energy of the solar eclipse, is that detaching so that we can, I mean, for myself, I'm just like, the benefits are going to be huge as a result of choosing to align with this particular energy, that I know that more will come from this because I'm choosing to detach now that I'm aware of what's going on, of the energy that I'm particularly playing on the personal level. But then you see it on the global level and the community level as well, and realizing, I mean, here in Australia, I'm very pro freedom, pro choice, and the ability to stand up and say no to the mandates that are happening. And despite where you stand on either side of the line of that, that all people deserve freedom and coming together as one. Here we can reach our personal peak of power, and it requires a greater sense of self-control and self-effort. So if you find that you're feeling very lost, have a plan for what you want to be working with, know who you can reach out to. Be very gentle with yourself at this time as you're working with this energy. Don't get sucked into power plays or games or drama that's going to be activated around and outside. But as long as you've got a strong focus, hopefully that won't be magnetized towards you. The animal symbols here are a male deer or a hare. And this same day, you'll see Mars will enter Scorpio at the end of the day. So we'll have this energy of the Lord of Scorpio. Mars rules both Aries and Scorpio. So that tells me that themes around detachment, but also the self, are going to be activated. And once this, once Mars goes over the eclipse degree, which is at 18 degrees for this particular day on December the 4th, that will happen, I believe, on the 31st. We will see violence, accidents, anger, big events that will be happening. And again, that's the 31st. New Year celebrations, I don't suggest, going to big events or crowded areas. Generally, this is not symbolically, it's not a good idea to be in those places at that time. And listen to your gut, what feels safe for you. Particularly, we want to have a spiritual intention and not a fear-based one where, for example, let's say there's a protest going on. Is it coming from a place of fear, or is it coming from a place of independence, peace, and power? Where I'm thinking of, like, for example, you see occasionally these meditating protests that are quite empowering versus very fear-based and what can turn into a very violent protesting event where people lose control because their narrative is so strong and they're so afraid to let go of control or to be controlled by others. So control issues here that come up are, like I said, like a breakup. There can be huge rewards as a result of going through that death rebirth process. I recently reconnected with a teacher of mine, and hidden information was given to me that I already kind of had a feeling was going on. It was just fascinating to see that I've spent the last 5 or 6 months kind of going through my own development and spiritual practice, and now I felt the call to come back to my community, which you can very much feel in this particular energy of knowing who you feel safe and comfortable with and the communities that support you. And yeah, this information being revealed in this eclipse portal, a feeling of loss, as I explained, being aware of what needs to be cut away. It's this cutting sort of an energy. Where do you need to cut ties in your life? Perhaps it's stepping away from groups or people or situations or energies for a while, just so that you can get some clarity. Because literally when you clear the space, you can see what you've got to work with. But when there's noise going on around you and there's clutter everywhere, you don't know what to do. You don't know who you are. If you're in a relationship, for example, that's gotten really messy, you might have forgotten who you are. If your family is really intense, and I mean, Christmas is coming up, family themes can become quite intense. You might need to take a step away this year and just say, hey, lots of love and light and blessings. And if you want to buy gifts or things like that, however it is that you choose to celebrate. And maybe you might need to go inwards this year and do a different type of practice or traditional thing specifically for you and your own, community or what you call your family, whether it's blood relatives or not, and be surrounded by those that nourish you at this time. Because I know that the themes of separation, I can definitely see, and the narrative that's been coming out where, there's a push to separate. However, I know that none of us are separate. We are all one, including those that want to separate, that there is a state of illusion there, that we we know that as we're on this spiritual path, especially with the yoga tools, that when we point a finger at others, three are pointed back at ourselves, and that coming to a place of forgiveness, understanding, love, and just focusing on you is so important, especially on the solar eclipse. So just quickly, I want to say major transformations can happen here through detachment. Karmic actions have reactions. So, for example, anything that happens out in the world, whether it's negative or it's positive, it's going to have a reaction. So for everything that's happening at the moment, and I mean, the narrative that I've been following, I have seen some very intense injustices that have been done. And I know that if and when those actions were taken were coming from a very inorganic place, there will be a reaction that will happen as a result. And that's where I feel that truth is going to come out as a result. Now, you'll see some of that happening around the full moon in Mrigashira in Gemini that I will be doing a reading for later in the month. This must be rectified. I feel that a lot of us are going through grief processes at the moment, whether you have just realized something that you need to walk away from in your life, or you've been cut away from something. Generally, when the tower falls or the universe takes something away from you, it's so that something new can come in. And if you don't realize that, it can be quite painful and confusing, and you might go back to it and play this dancing game back and forth, but knowing that it's a very necessary part of your spiritual journey so that you can come into more divine alignment and realize more of who you truly are. It's very easy to kind of go, oh yeah, I mean, for me, reporting on this stuff and sharing this information, I was just like, yeah, I kind of know sort of what sort of stuff I think is going to happen. But then when it hit me, I was like, oh, like you just feel gutted. Like I think of gutted, I think is the word I want to use there. And when I finally arrived at acceptance, I was in a very deep stage of grief in the last couple of days. It was around Wednesday this week where it just felt so intensely painful, where you just really need to be on your own. And if that means crying and allowing the tears to come out so that your heart can be cleansed and healed and that you arrive at acceptance, is so important. Whether that's something you're working through on the self level or the global level, so that you can arrive at clarity. And again, that's why Vedic astrology is so helpful, because these transits give us an idea of what we're playing with. And even when I knew what was going on, I still got smacked with it and realized what I needed to do and had to reach out to a mentor to just be able to hold space for me while I was going through that, because it was quite intense. So in this darkness, truth can be revealed, transformation can happen. And yeah, there's a lot going on this month. So definitely check out the December video if you haven't seen it already. I will do the full moon update and share that with you guys later in the month, closer to the date. Please like this video if it was helpful. You're welcome to subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more of my videos. You can share this with friends if you believe that they will be supported by this information. And you can write a comment below if you want to share your thoughts or just connect with others in our growing community. And yeah, I just wanted to say lots of love and light and blessings to you. Be gentle with yourself at this time. I'm not sure if I mentioned, but that eclipse, yes, I believe I did, was that being careful on the 30th and the 31st, because again, the energy this month is very fiery. It's very powerful, and we can use it to transform or we can use it to destroy, because Ketu is going to remove things for us anyway. So we just need to surrender and just trust. You don't have to do anything. Just reach out to your higher self and ask for guidance and hand over that power. I know one of my gurus, Amma, we just say, hand it up to Amma, and the pressure and the stress is lifted off your shoulders, and you have that divine light that will support you, even if you don't know what's going on, like a nurturing mother that is there to hold your hand and walk you down that path. You will always have someone there if you just reach out and ask for it. Lots of love and light to you. Take care and blessings. Namaste.